Hey then guys, a very tired, recently woken up exiled here. So today, I've had a few issues on the stream recently where got a few negative points. I just feel like I need to get down onto video. So today's video is going to be about gameplay and band-aids. What I mean by this is certain mechanics or perks or anything else that adds to the game which just fixes a situation with a band-aid rather than the devs or whatever going back to drawing board and trying to fix the issue by base. So looking back over the years, you can start off with, like, say, Nurse being released because of really strong tiles on the map. So rather than fixing the map Nurse has put out there just so you could bypass these things, empty blockers were put out because of the amount of infinites in the game early on. Then you got other perks like borrowed time being used for camping. You got Decisive Strike, used tunneling. You've got Undying recently, which is to fix problems with the totems. But you got also like things like Pop Goes a Weasel, which will allow you to regress generators because of how quick they're capable of being completed. So like a lot of these things in the game which get released, there's an underlying issue in the game about these problems, and rather than fix them at the base, at the core, they release certain things to bypass them, basically to fix them, to say if you have an issue with this, start using that, rather than going there's an issue with this, we'll fix it, or we'll come up with some sort of nice compromise for both sides. So yeah, I mean it can get a little bit irritating when you come against some of these things, especially if you don't always want to play like the meta. If you want to play something different, a lot of times you can't really do it to a successful level because there's so many things in the game which can negatively impact your gameplay just because of the fact that they're in there as a band-aid. Even when you don't play in that style, you still get punished because the perk has been put in the game or because the character's been put in the game. It can get a little bit tiresome. I mean, and if you look at it, like the strongest tiles in the game should have been fixed by now. They're going through the maps bit by bit, but even the maps that they've reworked, they're still putting in some really strong tiles where, unless you're playing someone like Nurse or Spirit, you can't successfully counter those tiles in an efficient manner, and it's a little bit silly how that's still in the game. Camp survivors, I mean, like, how many times you see a camped survivor nowadays? Not very often. Is that partly due to borrowed time being released? Of course, yeah, but rather than release a perk which, yeah, it does kind of like destroy a certain playstyle, but then again it kind of doesn't, because if that person camping plays in a smart manner, it can be almost impossible to save them with or without borrowed time. Why don't the hook survivors get rewarded for catching the killer's attention? If that killer is facing you so long when you're on a hook and you're being camped, really you should be getting rewarded for distraction points, whatever else. Just so, like, the longer you stay on that hook, the more you're helping your teammate who can go and push generators and do other objectives and get things done while you're there distracting the killer. That's how I would have balanced it. Rather than bringing out borrowed time, I would have said, okay, people on the hook, let's reward them because they're doing a great job at distracting that killer. And it's sort of the same with tunneled people. Instead of releasing Decisive Strike to discourage that gameplay, that play style, why don't tunnel people get rewarded for it? Because they're being repeatedly distracting the killer away from doing other objectives like pressuring generators. So why don't they get rewarded for it as well? Extra blood points, guys. Just stick it there, devs. Honestly, if someone being camped could leave a game with a similar amount of blood points to your teammate who's done 3 generators or whatever like that, and that's their entire game. If they get rewarded with a similar amount of blood points to that, then that'd be really strong. That would encourage somebody being camped to just see it through, because they're getting like decent monetary bonuses for doing very little in terms of, you know, what they need to do. It's a boring process, don't get me wrong, but being rewarded for it would be so much better than just sitting there and thinking, well, hopefully someone will come soon with borrowed time and not completely potato the rescue. Especially when I play a lot of solo queue. If I ever play Survivor, it's solo queue pretty much 90% of the time. So for me, that'd be much better. I'd much prefer that, because the amount of watch saves I see, like, not good. But then you got like your hexes. This is like more of a strange one. Hex Undying is there because the hex totem mechanic doesn't really work out that well. It's so easy for survivors to find them. Most people know where they are these days. Undying just kind of breeds this unhealthy process where it's even more RNG based whether like your hex rune's gonna survive, because you know they could just remove X Undying first off and then ruin after. It's better than ruin being cleansed straight away, but it's still RNG based, and it's obnoxious if it lasts for the entire 5 hex cleanses you ruin, because of the way people have been cleansing. Ruin, Undying, then ruin. It just can be really obnoxious, and it's kind of like a very 50-50, not even that, like whether it's going to be like a tough game or like an easy game with the cleanse. Anyway, I'm waffling with that one. But what I would do instead you got your hexes right now, I would personally make it so once those hexes get cleansed, there's still an effect there. Nowhere near as strong. Let's say like Hex Ruin, right? That right now, I believe, if I'm remembering right, I've just woken up. Remember right, it automatically starts regressing the generators once nobody's working on it, as long as the hex is still up. And it reduces it by twice as fast, so it's like 200% regression rather than 100%. Which is really strong. But why not, when it gets taken away, regression automatically starts up still, but it's at a very reduced amount. I'm talking like 25-50%, so it's like, you know, a quarter or half of the usual regression. But then give killers the ability to still kick a generator while it's being regressed at that very like reduced level. So what you get then is the ability to still pressure people like generators and still getting some sort of benefit for it. But the benefit you're getting is very, very limited, and survivors can still very easily counter that perk unless you're really good at pressuring that area. That'd be really good. And it'd be the same with something like Third Seal. When that gets cleansed, the passive kind of allows you to still hit people and blind them, but the blind effect only lasts for say like 1 minute or like a minute and a half or something like that. Maybe more than that because of how weak that would actually be. But if you get the idea, you kind of have your main hex. When it gets cleansed, you still get the power, you still get a power, but it's heavily reduced, but it lasts for the entire game. That's how I would have fixed hex totems. Because then it also kind of incentivizes people not to cleanse them quite as much, because either way you're still getting a benefit for it. So the chances are survivors might not actually want to cleanse them as often as they do right now. Right now they're that powerful, and they know they can get rid of it. You have the will go for the cleanse. It makes sense to. Whereas if generators are getting completed really fast, they might just go, you know what, it's not worth the effort to do that. We'll just carry on, play for this game, and that's that. So it could be the case like your hexes could last longer, maybe just by benefit of this little change. That's how I would fix hexes. Pop goes a weasel. I mean, it's a strong perk. I get why people use it. I really do. Generators can be completed really, really quickly on maps. Whether or not you're correctly pressuring certain areas of the map, we can just go by just by virtue of survivors playing efficient. I don't know how I would actually fix that perk. I don't think it even needs fixing too much. I just think like certain maps need to be reworked, changed, made it so killers are more able to pressure areas of it and having to need like a certain ability to actually get to areas quick. I don't know. It just, for me, like Pop Goes a Weasel just sort of shows that there is a bit of a balance like issue there, I think, somewhere. Anyway, guys, that's the sort of thing that I would really look at to fix this game rather than just sticking band-aids on there. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for checking it out, and if you agree, please do comment, please do like, please do subscribe, and if you haven't already, check out my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/ExiledInFlux. Bye bye. See you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.